Go ahead, Nina.
Well, welcome to Traveling Molly's, coming to you from Chicago and from the West Coast. We are in the midst of a tornado warning here, but luckily most of the other people here on Zoom are safely distant from us. So if we happen to lose our electricity and things begin to fly around like uh, in the Wizard of Oz, you'll know why. Um, my co-host, Al DeGenova, is not here. He's flying back from Europe as we speak, and I imagine his flight will get a little delayed. But we're going to act like things are normal until we can't. So in this edition of Traveling Molly's, we are welcoming Maxine Chernoff and Paul Hoover. Let's make a little noise for them, or do whatever we do with our hands. It's just so great to see you. We were hoping to somehow convince you to come to Chicago, but this is probably a lot cheaper for you.
Yes.
And it's as good as we can get. Yeah, so if I
Nice thunder.
a little distracted, you know why already. So usually we start with the hosts doing a poem, so I'm going to do that.
Okay.
And then we will start the open mic and just see how it goes. Well, everyone has heard the line about there being no there there. I don't know if you know that it was a line from Gertrude Stein, who I maybe forget. Anyway, who had gone back to her home in Oakland and found that the house that she grew up in was gone. And hence the line that there was no there there. It's a dark and stormy night. So this poem, if ever a there were, if ever a there were, it is a there reached only by jumping roof to roof beneath the sky where stars disappear. Oh my goodness. That's close.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Yeah. What were you saying?
I said it's pretty intense out there.
Yeah, yes. All right. Well, I was doing a reading actually out in San Francisco some years ago, and I started to hear this rattling sound and saw people clutching their chests. And sure enough, there was an earthquake happening. So I'm going to try to read this poem and act like, okay, shit happens, the show must go on. If ever a there were, it is a there reached only by jumping roof to roof beneath the sky where stars disappear in a halogen glut, insidious searchlights invading the dark. There on the street of poor excuses for trees, an approximate block from the slipshod mission, no green light long enough. In the torn, shattered city where music wears steel-toed boots, a there that waits for discovery doesn't exist until we name it, flagpole stabbed in a secret gash, the cave unknown until found, underground lake where it sprang into knowing the spring it began as a waterfall slicing through onyx arroyos, a there that doesn't wait but goes on while we sleep in poppy fields dappled with circular malfeasance. The ineffable there we seek in the musk of another's unspeakable, asking ourselves, is that it? Is there? But there we arrive at when laundry is folded with prospects projected on spreadsheets, or after the gambit, the sacrificed pawn. The point on the spectrum where blood once red runs so bone pale, it packs a skeleton T, perhaps there, of the X mark, the sweet spot, the cancerous lesion. Not a rest stop on the path of least resistance, nor an online oasis of virtual sensation, but a there shot through with lopsided sun and a partial eclipse, where we live at the decibel level of burgeoning screens, occipital recipients of shimmer and quake. If ever there was, it now is a rubble strip between two dumpsters, there and the backstory to it, another flat, another's lights inside, cracked thermostat, quicksilver scatter to every impending in Forsythia Spring, in brick stodgy houses, in half-empty restaurants at paltry repasts in the back of the bus with its leaky latrines, at cobblestone corners and gaslight retreats, in a throwback city, a hunchbacked harbor, a concourse of hustlers and hymns. Thank you. So we're still sitting, not standing. Thank you. And we're ready to go forward. So just checking in with my other Chicago area folks. Deb and Jim, are you all okay?
Yes, we lost our internet for a while, and we went into the basement because it got very dark and very windy, but it seems to have passed over now, and it's lighter. Yeah, so I think we're good. Yeah.
So that was it, and hopefully that's all it will be. So how about if we start with Robbie Nestor. Robbie, you ready to get us going?
I gotta get some sound here. I'm gonna start with a food poem from my manuscript Plated, and I'm trying to pedal. The poem is called Greedy. Of all the seasons, I love summer best because its bounty speaks to something in myself. A lust for what is beautiful, desire to possess it all. I feel it in my mouth and in my eyes, tasting its potential on my tongue. Words I choose as carefully as melons, knocking on their rinds to find that hollow tone that tells of sweetness. It isn't just the transitory pleasure of consuming perfectly ripe plums or cherries, but the mental exercise, imagining how I'll eat them, warmed by the sun or baked into a crisp or cobbler, mixed on the grill with something savory, a chicken thigh or sausage. In winter, art museums feed this hunger, but now the farmer's market has become my temple, where I can savor all the ripe stone fruits, their juices sticky on my chin. Drunk as a bee, I hover at the fruit bowl, the refrigerator, slaughtering the ants, queuing up like pilgrims at those shrines. I want to save it all for me, till the surfeit breeds a kind of sickness, until I'm hankering for something bitter, something bland that might restore the balance I have shattered by simply being who I am. And this one I'll read for you, Jim, because you liked it earlier on my page. So this is Games We Play. They were serious business, those games we played in the schoolyard, up the driveway, against the stoop, with balls and bikes or rakes, chasing each other up and down the block, building igloos in the snow. We played family, repeating all the curse words we heard our fathers utter, played war. On rainy Sundays, we got out old box games like Monopoly or Candyland, dealt hands of Old Maid on the kitchen table. But I preferred to play alone, retreating to the damp basement, where I'd imagine I was flying in the clouds, though it was just a stationary bicycle with wings I'd fashioned out of plywood, laid across the front end of the seat. Sometimes as I flew, I'd sing along to records of Broadway shows, learning all the words. I still remember some of those songs. Thanks.
Point of information, the hail is really crazy here. Thanks, Robbie. And now let's hear from Kevin Shine. Kevin. Kevin, we need your mic on. You're still muted.
How about now? Can you hear me now? Yes. That's funny, I can't hear you.
That's because I muted myself.
Oh, okay.
You got the floor.
All right. Robbie, this is so funny. I've got a food poem too. It's also about my hometown, which is Princeton, Illinois, about 125 miles southwest of Chicago. It's sort of right in the corn and soybean heart of Illinois. But that's sort of where the food part comes in. And the landscape around Princeton is pretty prosaic, but once, sometimes twice a summer, a refrigerated semi truck comes into town and it is loaded with bushel boxes of Georgia peaches, and they sell them right off the end of the truck. And there's such a contrast between this sort of prosaic, not very interesting landscape of corn and beans that contrasts so much with the delicious, luscious taste of this fruit that I had to write this poem, which is called Georgia Peaches. Twice a summer, before the Midwest county fairs have come and gone, a refrigerated semi exits off the interstate. It rumbles to a stop in the farm store parking lot. Here we stand and wait for Georgia peaches. Our prairie state grows corn and beans with ease. The farmers' market carts are overstocked with radishes, green peppers, summer squash, tomatoes, cukes, fruits, and berries of the season. Not peaches, though. Peaches need a warmer zone with milder winters and summers sultry as a small town floozy, flirting, juiced, the chef and her in an all-night diner booth. Back at the truck, our neighbors seem to hold their breath, imagining cobblers, crisps and crumbles, preserves in mason jars, braided coffee cakes from heirloom recipes, sweeter than the deadly sins, or unadorned, handheld, eaten whole, sweet juices running down our fingers, lips, and chins. A crew of good old boys swings wide the trailer doors, bantering with customers, unloading sturdy cardboard boxes, half a bushel each onto battered tables, a folding shrine for taking orders from the next in line. Stacks of cash multiply so fast, it almost fools the eye to see the 10s and 20s reappear in rubber-banded rolls, bulging out the pockets of the cashier's overalls. By sunset, in kitchens all around the town, peaches commandeer the horizontal surfaces, from countertops to pantry shelves. Straight from the box, a Georgia peach is firm, unyielding to the touch as green tomatoes, until in several days or so, when a thumb press leaves an imprint, when crow's feet wrinkles show around the stem, when rosy blush gives way to a rush of yellow gold, then you know you've waited long enough for Georgia peaches to turn to lusciousness. The first bite breaks the skin, tissue thin, unresisting, the juicy sweetness exploding on the tongue. We almost moan, each bite made sweeter to the taste and eye by ruby streaks bleeding from the stone. Only then do we remember half a bushel ripened all at once is a plethora for two. If left unchilled, a peach's heft will soften up the underside. We move them to the fridge, but there's no stopping peaches once they start to go. You'd think by now we'd know how many are enough, but queued up in the parking lot, all we had in mind was peach perfection, quashing any thought of having far too much. Nothing we can do but share our ripened trove with neighbors, pleased to take as much as we can spare. This is no ordinary harvest, no surplus of tomato vines and pepper plants from backyard plots, whose keepers give away as much as anyone will take and still have excess on their hands. No, each and every peach is in demand, shared and savored, as if it had a voice to say, goodness, real goodness, comes like Georgia peaches. It can't be staged or slowed or otherwise delayed. Real goodness won't be planned. It ripens all at once, so sticky sweet, it makes us lick the juices off our hands. When goodness comes, nothing is or could be half as good, as urgently desired as produce from a serpent's tree, as if a twig transported surreptitiously from Eden were grafted to a mortal stock to yield a peach, a crop more tempting and delicious than any earthly sweet that dangles out of reach. When goodness comes, it comes by truckloads on a summer afternoon. It overruns the courthouse square, the churches, fences, monuments, and cemeteries in a rising tide. It picks up speed, in need of nothing more to be complete, until we know there is no sin but one. To let a single peach be wasted, to never touch a human tongue, for God to make his world his peach and let it go untasted. Thanks everyone for listening.
Sorry, too many, too many distractions. Someone here was asking me to see if there were any messages from anyone, but apparently some of the apps are not working and I cannot get any information of that sort. Well, Randy, are you ready to go?
Sure.
Great, looking forward to hearing. By the way, I read some of your poems online and was excited to
Oh,
hear you tonight.
good, good. Thanks to you, thanks to Al. Good to be here with my co-open micers and really looking forward to hearing Maxine and Paul. I'm going to read two poems. The first one is Vinca Minor. Dream. I was a ground cover, maybe Vinca Minor, and I had rhizomatic toes. Interpretation, wanting and having instead of thinking and making. Consequence, any edge is a precipice. Consequence, allergies now, but purple accents come summer. Interpretation, as ground cover doesn't really stand so much as creep, and since a good Lacanian must speak of the knot that is minor, then one must begin to worry, if not openly rude. Background, I think I may have seen the journal Rhizome on my bookshelf yesterday. Background, Vinca minor is one of those plants you have to decide whether it's a helpful friend or an invasive weed. Consequence, ground and abound no longer rhyme. Interpretation, lack of a proper object. Background, I hate purple. Interpretation, if the big toe had evolved as opposable instead of the thumb, we'd be walking on our hands. Consequence, none. Consequence, standing at a window, I can't see past the pane of glass. I know the glass is there and beyond the window is a dusty garden. A seesaw in the street, I can hear cars, but I can't see those things. All I can see is the clear, clear glass. Consequence, I cannot not write periwinkle. Interpretation, stretching out underground is boring if you can't see it, but somewhat satisfying if you are it. Interpretation, it's not surprising I had trouble in elementary school with its rows of empty faces and shadowless lights and wire mesh in the windows, and the only color was the faded cutouts of red apples and green ivy around the ashy white blackboard. Consequence, I bring up excitement for contrast. I want to say that I have a book coming out soon, I think, from Blaze Fox. That was the first poem in the book, and this is the last poem in the book. The book is called Test Camp. This poem is Fog in the Tunnel. Not a list, but a listening to the birds that shout and pop and whistle derisively at us shut-ins. Not shut in, but shut up, boarded up, like a window, like homeless camps with tarps over tents. Not homeless, but unhoused, unapartmented, unhoteled, uncondoed, untrailered, unjailed, but just barely. Not barely, but bravely, we fight technology and Zoom away with friends, strangers, therapists. Not strangers, but strays, minutes away from feral, needing love, but settling for food and anxiety. Not anxiety, but anhedonia, that needy nemesis, keeping us hopelessly tuned into the mire of daily news. But a mire is not a mirror unless your face is swamped, like all of us, with the other's murk. Not others, but okay, others, because maybe your doxa is not my doxa, but my skin is all ours. Not skin, but skin and bones, bones like letters on a page, eruptions announcing our absence, fingers of an averted glove. There's a finger, but then a dismissal, a carved and shiny word, or Anything you just almost said can't be kept, so get rid of it. Not rid, but ride. Ride and ride it until you see your own eye, not from your face, but up from below. Everything is from below, wrapped up like a book, out for a cold day of reading or speaking if given a chance. Thank you.
I love Blaze Vox, and I'm excited for you
Oh,
to
thanks.
have your book. When does it hit the streets?
We don't know exactly yet. I'm thinking in a couple months.
That's coming close.
Yeah.
So let's see, next, how about Deborah Edelman?
All right, thank you, Nina and everybody. I'm going to read one poem, just one poem. It's all I got in me after that narrow escape to the basement. As a Midwestern child, you know, tornadoes are kind of scary to me. Anyhow, this poem is comes from a challenge to write a poem about a musician that I would like to talk to, and then a childhood memory, and then being told to mash it all together. And so this is what came out. It is called Song to Woody, which you might know that's a Dylan song. So, you know, that he wrote to the dying Woody Guthrie. So this is called Song to Woody, with apologies to Dylan, a woman's remake while listening to Mermaid Avenue. And I cannot sing these nonsense lyrics too well, so I'm not going to try, but just imagine there's music going on. Jarring music mismatched to nonsense lyrics. Hoodoo, voodoo, 721, 2, hey stacker, ha stacker, ABC. In the middle of a recording of such beauty, a song to skip. Jeff Tweedy and Billy Bragg have the lyrics wrong, playing them for sexy, though they were meant for kids. I imagine Woody agreeing, his thin voice, the oaky twang. If they had heard my recording, they would have understood. The song is not about sex. It's about the way kids jumble everything up. It's about rhyme. I think, well, Woody, it's your song, but you were pretty jumbled too. When you have kids, you should stick around to raise them. I remember a hot summer evening, the lake, and breaking free from my mother's arms. My first strokes. I was a child then, not yet 4. I remember thrashing below the water, the fishy lake smell, how I swam away, how I knew that my mother stood behind me. The image is there still. My mother, beautiful in her swimsuit, her black curls, her full-lipped smile, and her joy. Her girl had swum. Mama cat, Tommy cat, diapers on my clothesline. 2, 4, 6, 8, I run and hide. Pretty girl, pretty boy, pony on a tin can. I'll be yours, you'll be mine. The Wilco exuberance irritates me, but no more than if it had been sung in the reedy voice of a man long gone. I admire Woody when I don't think about his kids. How could he leave them in Oklahoma? They all came to a bad end, neglect, accident, disease. Surely Woody already knows that history is judging him. I had work to do. I imagine his response to my imagined accusation. Nobody can predict how life turns out. That summer evening when I was 4, if my mother had only known she had so few years left, she might not have let her girl wriggle out of her arms. She might have held me closer. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Jim, you ready?
Sure. I'm going to read 2 poems. And this first one is called Drone Chorus. The Carlow Community Chorus congregated before the dawn, and at first light voiced "Morning Has Broken" by Cat Stevens. Turlow dispatched his drone towards the blue to photograph the singers, near the footbridge over the River Barrow. Music from the assembled choristers ascended to meet the eye of the drone. These shots from above are now a standard real estate view when selling homes with acreage. The potential buyer getting a view they will never experience. At Creech Air Force Base, Nevada, young men and women sit in rows before screens tracking their prey around the globe. They lock in on a target, signal their robotic flying killing toy to strike. A flash, perhaps in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, Iraq. Perhaps the cheers erupting in the room are confirmed in a day that the target was destroyed. Perhaps it turns out to be an error, a school bus, a group of pine nut gatherers, an aid worker and his family, a journalist carrying a camera, singers at a wedding party. And the second poem is a prose poem, and it's called Child's Hand Bend. Billboards, sellboards, looming massive scarecrows in a field along the roads and highways. Next exit, last exit for campgrounds, recreation, hotels and restaurants, a career in the armed forces, redemption through the Bible. Along the river, there are numerous drop-in points, each run by a different outfitter for inflatable rafts, kayaks, inner tubes. Weekend fun near camping sites. The locals call the curves in the river Child's Hand Bend, above where the river gets wild with rapids and falls, and each with its own name. Gilmore's Mistake, Big Canyon, Miners Creek Confluence, Duck Nest Falls, Wolf's Neck Bend. Each name has a story. No one knows all the stories. Those who come for the weekend might not learn any of the stories. Even the locals and summer laborers don't know all the stories. Some stories are hard to hear. The river could be Big Sandy Creek, southeast of Denver in Colorado. The river could be the Washita in western Oklahoma. The river could be Hayfork Creek, west of Highway 5 in Northern California. It could be other rivers. No matter what story we tell ourselves, tell each other, it does not change the facts. Settlers lusted for land, for gold, so the army, the cavalry, the militia, the mob attacked, terrorized the encampment with intent to exterminate. The child ran and ran to the river and almost made it. But the bullets found the child, and the current took the child until the child got tangled in branches at the bend in the river. For weeks, only the hand above the water. Thank you.
Wow. So actually, Al told me, and I think that you mentioned this last time, you just won an award from UIC where you've been working on your MFA.
Yes, thanks. UIC gives out an award to graduate students, masters and PhD students. It's called the Michael
Is it
Anania Award. And it's probably the most I will ever make from poetry.
Probably.
It had a little cash with it. So.
Well, and then when you're finished paying off your student debt,
it'll be all clear sailing from there.
yeah, absolutely. How about if we hear next from Richard Nestor. And then we're going to wrap up with Elizabeth Robinson as a warning. And does your dog read poetry? No, okay. Very cute.
We have a cat. And he threw up. Does that count?
It wasn't, but it wasn't an editorial comment.
Actually, Richard, let me ask you a question that was left on my mind. When
Okay.
you were telling me you saw a tornado, whatever's here in Illinois. Where were you when you saw that?
I was near Lake Michigan in the north part of Chicago. It was in a section it was in 1968. And at that time, it was a section they called Hillbilly Heaven. I don't know whether they still call it that or not. But summer of 1968.
Wow. Summer love.
And I come from the mountains, so we didn't get any tornadoes in the mountains. So it's a big event. I'm going to read one poem about work, which is called On Top. They are like construction Sherpas, the roofers, re-roofing the roofs of the condominiums where I live. Each of the units is at the crest of a California hill, which makes it like a small Alp, its steepness having collected like a restless drip. Each man is blessed with a good pair of boots and flexible hamstrings that can deliver forearms parallel with the ground with enough leverage to hammer in shingles. They are up there all the hot morning and afternoon with their unbent knees and long sleeves, thinking their secret thoughts. The one I am especially watching carries a sheet of 4 feet by 6 feet plywood with his arms spread above his head, to put in an oblong hole that he has recently finished measuring with a yellow tape. He is but one of several who are as careful with each other as violinists in an orchestra, but he may be the best of them. I am not competent to judge. Their language is Spanish, which I do not understand, nor want to at this moment, lest understanding spoil the miracle of their labor, which is as much a miracle as if they were talking with birds about the geometry of wings. If I could only write as well as they work, I would do it. May their wives and their children bless them as they bless their boots.
That's,
Uh,
it's in your new book.
it's in the book had been out for about a month, and I finally got up enough nerve to take it down at lunchtime and read that poem to the crew. And they had all spread out in little groups, and so I had a group of about 4, and they're the most attentive audience I've ever read to. I think maybe only one of them spoke very, very good English. And he had a smile on his face and tears in his eyes, and said nobody had ever thanked them before. So now we're getting our own roof done, and I'm thanking them again. Thank you.
Want to read another one?
No, that's it.
Nina, you're muted.
I am so sorry. I'm just having a hard time doing the tech tonight. Thank you. I was just saying that we're all thankful, I'm sure, to have roofs over our heads tonight. And then, without further ado, Elizabeth Robinson, I'm looking forward to hearing your work.
I've been writing some poems that are on this or on that. And so since she made an appearance, I'm going to read On Getting the Dog to Eat. 7 a.m. The dry food in the bowl, the medication in its chewy pocket, some wet food smeared on top. She does not eat. A garnish of leftover fortune cookie crushed on top. She does not eat. We leave for work. I return in the afternoon. She rushes to the fetid bowl of food and eyes me. She eats it all. She goes outside and shits. Having shit, she makes a loop away and then back to the excrement to sniff it. Invariable pattern. This is dog mind. We are manifest not because of what we are, but because of what we emit. We eat only to shit, and shitting prove that we exist. Poem for my dog. Thanks for including us. We're looking forward to hearing Paul and Maxine, and it's been a pleasure to hear all of you. And I'm sorry you have COVID, Paul. On gerrymandering. Define boundary if you can, as if a boundary were a district, from the Latin for distinguere, to draw apart. So draw it. District in the shape of a glob of spit, in the shape of the blue jay's ominous arrival at the bird feeder, in the shape of the crippled stumps of a pollarded tree, in the shape of the voices that arise from over the fence from men leaning against a car in the sunshine, discussing Barry Bonds and smoking weed, in the shape of a top-heavy child on a pogo stick, in the shape of In God We Trust. To draw asunder, compel, distrain, in the shape of Harold of the purple crayon, drawing a bed and drawing up the covers and going to sleep. Now I'll read one more. On self-care. Self-abased, self-contempt, self-same, the injunction to self-cure that self-supervisor delivers to the subordinate self. How does the self massage the self, sleep the self in, feed the self pancakes, select the self's bouquet from something other than the detritus of the grocery store's stock? What little rivulet carved out of the obdurate day might somehow become a vast Grand Canyon of the self's self-adoration? The self has skepticism to which no self can answer. The self lessens itself to the supervisor's lesson to take care of a self straightened by design to the constraints of the lesson, to be a self so condensed to the lesson's condescension. Thanks. The dog commented also.
As did my husband, who just reminded me to unmute myself. So I love those. And gerrymandering is one of those subjects that really gets me riled. And I appreciate your associating it with boundaries. Maybe totally unrelated, but a therapist friend of mine said that she had talked to her mom about boundaries. And her mom's response was, boundaries? I don't have any boundaries. You're the one who has boundaries. Okay, I'm glad you appreciate that as much as I did as a therapist also. So that is it. And for our open mic, and we're going to head into the features. And I start that by telling you all, not just those who are in Zoom, but also on YouTube, that we have a vain hope that we can still pass the hat virtually. And we have no hat and we can't pass, but we do have a donate button, which is, I believe it's available. It's on the Facebook page. It is also on the YouTube feed, right, Bill? And where else would it be? Oh, it should be going into the chat here on Zoom. Please donate. We'll get that out to them so that they know that they're loved and not because it'll pay for dinner.
There's nothing on YouTube per se, but I think on the Facebook page there is. I'll find the link and put it in the chat.
Great, great. Thank you. Yeah, we have this feeling that poets don't get paid as much as they're worth. That if you have a book out, you may get paid a fraction of a penny for every 10 words you've written. That may be a high estimate. But we get some of the best here. Ever since we've had great features when we were live, and now that we are virtual, we get the best poets from everywhere, and they can make it even if they have COVID. So for that, I am thankful, and I wish you, Paul, an easy course of it. So let me start by asking, do either of you have a preference for reading first or second?
I'd be happy to read first. Is that
All
okay with
right.
Paul?
Well, then let's start there, but I first have to give you an introduction. I remember hearing you read for the first time. I think it was a Poetry Center of Chicago event in that big hall in the School of the Art Institute. And lately she's been posting on Facebook a wonderful series of diary entries. And that impelled me even more to invite her to come, even though we've been trying a little bit for a while. Maxine is the author of 17 books of poetry and 6 books of fiction, one of which was a New York Times notable book of 1993. She's won the Carl Sandburg Award, an NEA in poetry, the Penn Translation Award, and was a 2016 visiting writer at the American Academy in Rome. Okay, so poetry can at least take you places. Former editor of New American Writing. She is a professor and former chair of creative writing at San Francisco State. She's read and or taught her poetry in England, Scotland, the Czech Republic, Russia, China, and Brazil. I'm so excited to hear you, Maxine.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm sorry if I brought bad weather your way. Just one second, Paul, can you mute your whole thing? Be silent. Or turn it on. I don't know, or turn it off. I don't know what, but there's this big echo. Yeah, we have a big echo.
So I was muted already.
Well, you're yourself are muted, but I don't know what to do.
Bill, is there anything you can do at your end?
I'll leave and come back in, I guess.
Or go in the other room. Go in the other room with
Because it
you.
looks like he's muted, but he's not.
Right. He's gonna go in a different room, so we don't hear the reverberation.
All right.
Thank you. Don't want to get too close because I don't have it yet.
Oh,
Okay, so I'm going to start with a few poems that aren't from the series that is that are the diary poems I've been putting up. But these are all from a book that will eventually be out as the new part of a new and selected. One of 2 presses is doing it. I'm waiting to hear if this first press that has had it for about 3 centuries and that I would really like to have do it we'll do it. But if not, I know another press that will. So this book will come out, I would say, in the next year or year and a half from one of two presses. So I'll read all newish things, but mainly I will read the diary poems as Nina hoped, because they're my newest project, and you always enjoy reading what you're writing now the most. I think, at least I do. So the other ones I'm reading are, they're a couple of years old maybe. I'm going to read a couple that aren't part of the sequence, that I'm going to read from a different sequence, and I'm going to read all diary poems. So this is called You Took the Dare. You took the dare to live here and there as recluse and as host. While everything exploded and flames turned water red, you suggested a menu and gave to a proper cause. Nothing endured the losses around you, the final note that sounded past alarm. A cloudy resemblance of what once sufficed came to be known as grace, as you listened to grass growing, to a boy praying near the great stone wall. Crisis after crisis stacked up like plains in fog. You counted moss-covered bricks near the former factory, where at sunset, brown light flickered. What else to do but live? And then the second one that is not part of any series is called Falling. You fell upwards into primacy, a response of bells and cold arias, clashes of metal on metal. Then you fell downwards, outside of history's grasp, under cold covers. You felt the weight of days. The roll top desk hid secrets of your progress. Bone on bone, time disabled reason's better gestures. God spoke a forgotten language recognized by a minor species of wren. Europe flooded that summer. Old growth forests burned. You embraced the century with its troubles and resolves. Its laundry list of griefs. Fog's tender notions laughed at your feet. Okay, now I'm going to read from the sequence previous to the diary sequence, and that was two springs ago. I wrote about 20 backward sonnets, meaning that they began with the ending couplet, if you're thinking of the Shakespearean model, and then the stanzas were 2, 3, 4, and 5 lines long. So I'm just going to read a couple of these. These are really a lot of them about COVID and the COVID outbreak, because just when I started my sequence, I was so excited. I had the semester off. It was late February, and then it was March, and then it was COVID. So almost all these poems end up being about that. Okay, so this one is just number 14 in the sequence. On the calendar of missing days, bright May passed in a firmament of haze, while our other selves roams avenues, remembering how feelings swelled and oceans too. Subject to memory and its children, we find our best selves in a mirror of belonging. Crowds swarm behind us in scenes of slow time, absence itself a destination. As the future goes missing, lost in shrubs or budding groves, boats wobble ghost-like in slips, and clouds roll overhead unseen by captive multitudes who save their lives by simply losing hold. How hands slacken, drinks stay full, the castle sleeps. But this is not a tale. While sheep grazes ever, the brindle dog wonders where the neighbor's gone, the one who tended zinnias and daily asked his name. Forgetting as an art, silhouettes, ideal forms. Okay, so that's one of them, and then I'll read one more of them in this sequence. This has Trump being crazy in it, but that's probably in everyone's poem for the last 5 years. Number 17. While signs proclaim the madness of the king, the world spells its name in summary. Summer of woes and nature's worldly face, how fledglings enter seasons rich with song. First note the ear has never heard or failed to hear. We found you, world, when we were new, and you were snow on roof, black branch of unfilled space, absence to which we lent a listening ear. Days painted green within a globe that also holds the song. Only amber colors worlds past display of how we lived before the map was red with death. Eyes peer out from stories unknown. Okay, so those were my miserable COVID sequence. And now I'm going to read these new poems where an interesting thing happened. I wanted to write a lot this spring, and I had nothing in particular in mind. And so I just started calling little snippets diary. They're mainly, I guess, prose poems. Some are more lean toward more short stories, but very, very short stories. And I've written quite a few of these since January, when my leave for the semester began. And now the semester's over, and I'm still, of course, trying to write these. So they're all called diary. So I will say diary to just indicate I'm starting a new one, but it won't give you much information. Diary. You were not there when the rift appeared, or the sinkhole that held another miniature world. You made nothing new to stand on or peer into. The bottom didn't drop out. You gained new abilities to see beyond the edges into the narrow heart of things, under the woes, to the hearthstones warmed by your looking. Comfort creates heat. What comes from our deepest pains, our tender notions. You are a stone warmed by the sun, hope resting in the hollow of your shadowed palm. Okay, this is called diary. You cling to the objects of your life, that bracelet, that vase, knowing there are no proper amulets, no talisman for damage control. Who are you to feel their lives so acutely as they wane on a Friday in March? Here the moist magnolia buds give off their fragrance. The blood tree grows elsewhere. You will need an axe. And just as COVID entered my sonnet sequence 2 years ago, the war in Ukraine entered this work, and it's here and there. This is one that is next one. It is William Carlos Williams' season. The dogwood unfolds into the air, blue ice melting in small patches on the hospital road, and signals a pause in the developing scene. What do we call the world with its 5 senses and lonely amphitheaters? We are awaiting a meadow where purple buds flare overnight and flicker in late falling snow. Diary. Some say the world will end in fire. Of course, there will be efforts made, but nothing lasts forever. One Russian oligarch said to love Ginsburg will chant the Sunflower Sutra. A woman with her pet pig will hold him under the shower until the spigot runs dry. A mother will find a green verge on which to rest with her infant. No incense or myrrh, only the burnt orange sky to backdrop the lace that is ash, the ash that is lace. And I think that's kind of a Vladimir Putin saying he's going to blow up the world poem, maybe. This is called Diary. Inches from here, rain's new declension declares itself a boundary and an entrance. Shiny ants carry last leaves from one dark mound to another. Sun splays over the scene as you rehearse the words you spoke before names cluttered the airwaves and songs became notions. The neighbor's yard filled with crows drunk on mulberry wine and November sun. What accounts for your day builds purpose and definition. Best to reckon harm, syllable by syllable. Best to ask others who have come to witness how a word can hold an edge or make a tender notion errant and unwitnessed. You lay your hopes under that tree. Your fears move into view like a minor planet's third moon. This is after Vallejo, diary. I will die in my kitchen with a lemon in my hand on a day I already remember. I will die in the kitchen and I don't shy away. The oregano, the rosemary, the bone broth, the rain, as I prose these lines. It may be on a Thursday, of that I am not sure. Okay, and this one is about flowers and about John Milton. Diary. A forest of words opening like that bone white flower growing with the mushrooms at the base of the cypress. Nothing is born whole, which is to say, we make ourselves by and in relation. The feather and stone glistening by the riverbed are part of the venture. Milton's furious angels and the pair of eyes reading these words. A train and its trek over the twisted route a mountain makes. The word and the hour of its invention by a woman reading in her dimly lit room, all she knows of paradise. Okay, diary. A painting laments its conquering songs, wailing songs, chain gang songs. Climbing the greenest tower where ivy lattices upwards, the sun is splayed, light inscribing the sky. An icicle cracks, suspended behind the black bear's reach for ripening huckleberries. No one to describe the melting so close to his ear. A chickadee sings, another replies. Diary. I know you exist in books I take up just to find you, often a footnote or entry in an index. They are giving thanks for you, you who could outrun them all and find your place at any table. You knowing the tiniest bones in my ear and making them vibrate with an ecstasy of sound. I see you now holding the rope that is my life. Until further notice, hang on tight. This is also diary. You've gone to the city to relive the 20th century. Fedoras beside you, you in your simple shift and pillbox hat. It is the prelapsarian pink of 1963, only days before the world broke and grief-filled radio waves. No one to mend this dream by reversing its course. Like a child with an abacus, you walk headlong into the sorrow. The uncertainty of the hour is a wish, as present and future engulf the story with endings. And of course, that's about the JFK death. And pillbox hats were the thing that. These are kind of milder ones. Diary. I wanted to be a cowboy and shot my father from behind the couch and between the legs of the Formica table. I had silver guns and a fake leather holster. On my Schwinn, I was Lieutenant Cable, tumbling onto the Ornstein's lawn in a Hammerstein fantasy of young love destroyed. Mostly I was a rabbi, reading the inscriptions on my temple wall to do justice and love mercy. When the actual war in Vietnam arrived, I remembered that wall and how we create suffering, even in play. Diary. When the movies spoke, some of the silent stars had Betty Boop voices and Hungarian accents. Deadpan Buster Keaton, who had set the world in motion by yanking a single brilliant string, lost his art to sound. The ghosts of Harlow and Lombard visited, his dreams of industries fading and young women losing their lives. No smiles for the camera. Progress is a disease. This is about a couple who are in some room during the stuff that's happening in Ukraine. So they're in Ukraine. In their dream bed, blending boundaries and endearments, the known world is a bridge of rotted planks over murky water, which they are crossing together, the lovers, holding life's promise in their arms as armaments pummel the air. Love and war, partners in their story of escape. John Donne's island overwrites the imagined globe. Now they are awake in the windowless basement, hunched between others, no chance to feel the eternal sun warm their cheeks. This is another just little kind of one about being young. You slept on library desks with sun on your back or between the darkness of rows, elbows splayed, then rushed home in the twilight cold. That was your girlhood. Today, as the warmth of a March day bleeds into your clothing, you open a book. You feel the length of hours and days. Years, what are they? This is another childhood dream because it has peonies in it, and I'm obsessed with the Midwest and its peonies, where we have no peonies here. You have peonies here, but they cost $15 a peony. That's the actual truth. Yes, you can get anything anywhere, but they cost a lot. Diary. Ants invaded the peony bulbs, while under the vast face of sky, fireflies sent their signals. We lit sparklers and ran in joyous circles. Bedtimes came and went, while in the world napalm ravaged a jungle, and in our own south, dogs and water cannons spread their hate. This too, part of your childhood. No paradise, only time and its casual indifference, through which you see the ravaging ants, their persistence. Here is another one about Ukraine. Diary. They had always wanted a son, the young couple, so the grandma, the dog, and the small boy crossed the border into Poland. She makes use of a stroller abandoned at a train station to push the child who holds the small dog on his lap. Rituals like morning tea are memories. Everything she had is lost. An empty calm fills her, makes her able to press forward, find a tiny room for the three of them, one mattress, no stove, a bathroom shared by 14. As they wait in line for supper, her phone rings. It's her daughter telling her that the child's father's been killed. Her plan to wait behind, now senseless. They are both widows of different wars. Outside embers stir a bonfire that lights the spring night with vagrant ghosts. There is no heaven, she thinks, only the infinite arrogance of men and their bullets. The dog snores in the corner, twitching in his sleep. Okay, this is one called Diary. What a surprise. Diary. Horror and honor are virtually twins, cousins at least. Your horror of broken worlds and citizens buried alive is our honor. In horror, you find the bodies. In honor, we boast of our resolve. Your horror of tornadoes, here you go, your horror of tornadoes, or elderberry wine, or squeaky floors, our honor at existing and vexing you out of your state of repose. The world calls to us in many voices. The haunting of someone lost to you stands next to a lullaby, a sweetly remembered kiss, wet and bespoke, the last notes reaching an adagio for strings. The world strains to contain the horror of silence that fills a room in Syria or Yemen or Ukraine after the bombs rain down, honoring each victory, which is a horror uncontainable by those of us wanting to live in unity, as trees do, their underground root systems sending melodies unheard by the forest. The bomb-sniffing dog doesn't understand. His nose a sensing instrument. To him, it is a science of sorts, to smell the rich bouquet of chemicals. I had to do a book review of someone's book, Paula, I wish I knew her last name, Paula Yolmanowitz, I believe, who was a beat poet in San Francisco in the 60s. And after writing the review, I also wrote this little poem called Diary. I read her work celebrating gardens, but the words had an edge, as if tiny spikes are scattered to subvert the scene. Of course, a metaphor, as is the garden itself. The woman whose poems ended their first life in a box decades ago is now a voice to notice, its vividness a fealty to life. We scatter her words like wisps of March grass in the season of peril and growth. Okay, I'll read 2 or 3 more. Diary. Suppose just for a day a string were tied from lemming to lemming, from asp to adder, as if we were making a giant necklace of life. Cows next to crows, behind pigs trailing garter snakes. And then we add the glitter of humanity, a trombonist here, a bead maker there, a baker of croque monsieur, all part of a sculpture covering the lonely world and its underground tributaries. Too large to capture in an image, too awkward to house outside of nature. No tickets or lines or commercials, just this dragonfly eyeing this lynx, eyeing this vole. And the last two I'll read are more like tiny little stories. One is based on my son's work, and he gave me permission to write about it. One's different. The first one's about lying. Diary. She lies about her beagle and its pedigree. No one really cares, least of all the beagle. A friend's former husband claims he played basketball in Europe. He is tall, but has never been to Europe. A man tells his girlfriend he's going to work, but sits in his Audi all day, shooting up. The cat lies about being fed. Isn't she getting plump? The owners ask each other as she continues to swindle double servings. It's odd how intense and convincing liars can be, even a cat, when there is so much at stake. But there are other small transgressions next to government lies about weapons of mass destruction, police brutality, zealots' cant about an embryo being a child and a woman an incubator, Republican lies about thoughts and prayers, Russian lies claiming they are on a mission to eradicate Nazis. If there were a God looking down on the mess, he might resign or kill himself. Maybe he already has. We would understand. And the last one I'm going to read is about my son's last job, and he works in TV. So this is what happened at his last TV show. And he's a script writer, and he also gets usually to write one episode a season, which he did get this season as well. This is a show with, did I mention the horrible person who the crazy guy is? No, but it's John Stamos, in case you want to know. It's a show called Big Shot, where John Stamos plays a basketball coach for high school girls. Okay. And it's really about the writers. It's not as much about the show. Diary. Every top man on the TV series used the same renowned LA cardiologist who had a daughter who imagined herself a screenwriter rather than an amateur who wrote superfluous Muslim terrorists into every script and cried when her scenes got edited. No, people don't cry when their scenes get edited in Hollywood. The showrunner and the hair boy star pushed real writers out of the writer's room to give her a continuing role. Only problem, she couldn't write and never improved. Next problem, the showrunner was enamored of her, and despite her obvious lack of instinct or good instinct or talent, promoted her for the next season. She now had the power to change the stories the real writers submitted, and no one to stop her. After all, if something goes wrong with your heart. And so the show's episodes grew worse and worse, tangled messes as season 2 was undermined from within by the triumvirate of fools. Meanwhile, the star, who didn't write at all, that's John Stamos, threatened to quit if his last-minute revisions, festivals of self-aggrandizement, weren't included. The showrunner gave up trying to fix anything. Goodbye, plot and continuity. The cardiologist's daughter continued her linguistic killing spree. Want to work in Hollywood? Be ready for actual scenarios that sound like spoofs of screwball comedies. But no Cary Grant or Kate Hepburn here. Just horny men who sunk a show and the cardiologist's daughter. Okay, thank you very much. And I really enjoyed listening to all of you read as well. Thank you.
It was wonderful. And
Thank
you know
you.
what? I would love to see the piece with where you reference Adagio for strings.
You'd like to actually well, I'll send it to you, right? You don't want me to hold
Yes,
it up.
please do. Please do.
I'll send it to you. Okay.
You
You
know,
didn't mean hold it up in front of my face.
right, no. That diary series is going to be a book, and we will be able to order it. I don't know how soon. I guess you'll have to finish writing it first.
I need to finish writing it and get it out there. But I'd say probably next year and a half. That'll happen. Thank you very much, Nina.
I was going to say that you would say this incredible line or phrase, and I wanted to write it down, and then you were off to some other phrase, and then, but I
Yeah,
can't.
I tend to read quickly. I know that's a habit of mine
Well, I
um,
don't think
throughout the years.
it wouldn't be a problem if you didn't have so many killer lines.
Ah, thank you. Well, then I guess that's where the book will.
That's
Where the book will help. But I know that they always talked about Tom Rayworth being such a fast reader, and I don't think I'm as fast as he was, but I know I read the test. Anyway, thank you, and it was such a joy to listen to everyone else, and now we
Yeah.
get to hear Paul.
And yeah, Paul, so I'm looking forward to hearing you, and I'm going to read a bio as we warm up. And Maxine, would you mute yourself while I do that? Oh, maybe you already have. Hold on. So, Paul Hoover is the author of 16 books of poetry, most recently the Book of Unnamed Things on Mad Hat Press. Also Green, New and Selected Poems. With Maxine Chernoff, he edited and translated selected poems of Friedrich Hölderlin on Amidon. Is it Hölderlin or Hölderlin?
Hölderlin.
Okay.
The official German is unexpected.
He's a winner of the PEN USA Translation Award. He has also edited and translated in part the New World Written selected poems of Maria Baranda on Yale University Press. He's the editor of 2 editions of Postmodern American Poetry and Norton Anthology in '94, and in 2013, I have the earlier on my shelf. And the annual literary magazine, New American Writing, which was a great, and you're not doing it anymore.
No, it's an annual and it continues.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. It's over 200 pages this time.
What's that?
It's
Dana?
over 200 pages this time.
Wow. He's a professor of creative writing, also at San Francisco State University. Makes me wonder if my nephew took classes with either of you, but I'm ready to hear your poetry now, Paul.
All right, well, thank you. So my most recent book is called O, comma, and Green, New and Selected. And the other book was before that in 2018. This is a half of my career, recent selected poems. I had another selected in 1990. How old am I? So I'll read from Poems in Spanish, which was kind of a turn for me when I started writing them. This is called The Mill. This is the evening when a bird nests in a hat, left in the street by a flying man, a man of worlds and heat, of vellum and fog and sculptures that lurk when we're not looking. This is the evening. This is the moment when the traffic passes, as I have taught it to pass, as I have learned the way. This is the moment. This is the place where snow was invented. This is the town it falls on, consisting of 3 houses with plastic lights in the doorway, a man who touches his woman as she likes to be touched, no matter how warm, always snow, and the hand that turns the world. This is the place. This is the life that keeps me awake at night, its distances and skin, and this is time with its foot in a crack, unable to move yet passing. This is the life. This is the hour when the crime was committed. This is the first cause watching. This is the river drowning and a filthy shadow washing its hands. This is the hour. This is the little fish eating the big one. This is the man who lives by the tracks. This is the train passing. This is the mill where the grain was turned. This is the grain unfinished. And this is the empty bed of the stream that used to turn the wheel. This is the mill of absence. And another poem from Poems in Spanish. Wasn't originally going to read it, but you had it, Nina, you had a reference to missing houses. Yeah, my background is full of missing houses. We would move every 3 or 5 years to a new town for my dad to get a new pastorate. The presence. We know it and we feel it, the fierce will of things to set themselves apart, isolated by their beauty, bereft in isolation. Museum of the thing, the living glove, earthen shoe, a parakeet's soft feather that seems to be made of fur, yellow tuft of sunlight falling through the air like nothing but itself, as water is nothing but water, grinding and turning as if there were no passage. Where does the work get done that tenders so much beauty and leaves us in such grief? Sweet meat and papaya, your own face in chrome with its hint of speed, all these chaste subjects love us in their way, needle and thimble, dog and bone. Whatever is absent in them, let it speak its name. Fingerprint, blue smudge, a typewriter with new keys, one for infinity and one for sleeping. Each night the objects come to watch us in our beds, above which hang the dusty family portraits, retreating toward a quaintness that can only be remembered. Mother in her kingdom of white gloves and black Bibles, the mouse she trapped in her hand as it leaped from a cabinet. And father, poor father, whose kindness went on forever, ever into a clear confusion. What were those sounds I heard from the bed beyond the wall? Which way should I drive now to find the house we lived in, vanished, including its trees? Gone the upstairs bedrooms with their perfect shining floors, not even a ghost to warm them. All things come to witness these absences like objects, pears so near to ripeness they nearly melt in the hand, and roads that will only go south with the sound of tires like rain. My family was all from the South. I try to disguise my accent. So I then wrote, I have to remember the title. I included an entire series of 50 poems called Desolation Souvenir. And there's an echoic effect in it. And so I'm going to read from the middle of it so you can catch the echo. The present opens empty. You can't play dead for long, it makes people nervous. And death is so private, it misses the point entirely. Our amusements need us on stage and at the wedding. There's a way out of your senses, underground to the east, where the emperor's army was buried. Don't crouch in your grave, lie as flat as you can, so it will know you're there. Genie, genius, spirit, mechanic means have struck, a blow you won't survive. Rival hours are passing, no bees in the hive, no hive, sound returns to its bell. Unrealities rare. The absolute, if there is one, the darkest thoughts are trees, with a hint of light behind them. Life has been and is a miracle death discovers in the farthest well-lit room. What had been silent staggers back to its voice. Consolation roars, only the sound of life, houses without doors. Moral fish and moral laws, let me sink my teeth in that. Now that all is gone, this thought is on its own. Go, my carrion nouns, seek what you have found. Houses without doors. Did you ever see an owl in flight ever? But it survives in you from something you once read. It's terrible but true, unrealities rare. The landscape is changed by what we think we hear. Father will go far, mother sounds like murder. Earth's tune is nearly perfect. Everything is reckless, easy, and worth living. A terrace, a tuba, what an honor. Later horror is a flower's delicate beauty. Sound returns to its bell. Identity is double. Beauty is twice the trouble. Two eyes in the mirror are fearful of the fact they're equal as two egos. Moonlight on the ground, frost on the window. I am now sufficient to the absence I imagined. No song can live without it. The present opens empty. The body is a fool, too pious, too solemn. A song on accordion fate doesn't understand. The count is down to none. No false alarms lately. Time and space are calm. Little by little, trouble becomes us. Destination mirror, desolation souvenir. The tomb is unprepared for what lies in it. What made the world think? The tomb is unprepared for what lies in it. What made the world blink for our friend's pleasure? The closer we get to a statue, the more we're made of plaster. Some metaphysical pattern is holding up our bones. Death is a trick of nature. One size fits all being. Moon, cover our craft before we are only breath. And this is the final one in that series. Crimes of the heart. Yesterday you were here, now no matter gone. Irony has no meaning, the taste of me is you. You go to Mother Earth, she takes the body in, enfolds it with herself. Applause, encore, a corpse. Even the mode of error changes with the fashion. To awaken as an owl, hear the mice traipsing. Every day, a little dying to wear your being well. That's kind of dark, isn't it? And the next book I wrote was the Book of Unnamed Things. I'll read one poem from that, and it's completely after Wisława Szymborska. It's her pattern. Written after Szymborska. The written stone rests in the unwritten river. Unwritten rain is falling over the written town. Nothing written today, but tomorrow you'll be written as you sit in your room, not writing. Lo, it is written. Pollen writes on the stamen. The man writes a child in the body of the woman. Your eyes write the view into the window, but it doesn't stay forever. It returns with you into the unwritten. All that means is written. Lo, a tiger of a word has escaped its cage. Our quiet words wait beneath the stair for a reason to speak, an edge or fold or cause to remark. Oh, we say, no way and no how. This is how the world begins, dark branches written against a white sky. The written stone rests in the written river. Written rain falls over the written town. And then I wrote some poems that are loosely or fiercely, I can't decide which, based on the Old Testament. How's that for a subject? This is, have you eaten of the tree? With a quote, epigraph, and the fourth river is the Euphrates. The first day was a long day, and the first night nearly eternal. No thing existed, and only one was present to perceive what wasn't there. No meaning as we know it, difference was bound in the all. On the first day, water. On the second day, land. On the third day, two kinds of light, one of them night. On the fourth day, laughter, and darkness saw it was good. But when God laughed, a crack ran through creation. On the fourth night, sorrow, staring away from heaven, torn in its ownness. No evidence then of nothing, but worlds upon worlds, underwritten, overflowing. The worlds of fear and of longing, lacking in belief, and the pitiful world of love, forever granting its own wishes. Out of the dust like golems, God created man and woman and cast them into chance. And man was subdued in those days. All that could leap, leapt, and all that could weep, wept. And a river flowed out of Eden, inspiring in the dry land a panic of growth and harvest season. The newly formed creation took from flesh its beast, and from each word its sentence. And early loves and hatreds blew from thistle to thorn. Everything that God created, he placed before man so that he might name it. Cloudbank, hawk's eye, lambkin, and for each thing that God made, God provided the name. andiron, Nietzsche, corporation. All speak of pain subtle in its clamor, as when the child dying sinks into its skin as under public snow. Heart-rending each termination, God shaken each beginning. As at the dawn of smoke, pungent as creation, the long chaos rises over these trees. For we opened our eyes in Eden with the taste of fruit on our lips. That was a long one. This has a little bit of social commentary, I guess. Signs and Wonders, and it has a quote from Kurt Gödel. If it is, you can hardly see. If it is consistent, it is incomplete. If complete, inconsistent. For it will happen that they live in Bakersfield in the gardens of Coalinga, where they enter the rock and live in the rock and remain in the rock when they die. For their high definition eyes are more than nature and art, and the dust of their seeing paints them from within. For they please themselves with images and images of images. Their lips are stung by bees, their breasts yield no milk. The miser lies down with the master, the skinny clerk with the fat. For the land of plenty is the land of baristas. For their sisters work at Walmart and their unions are non-existent. They prepare the table with Popeyes, feed desire with lottery tickets, and live forever downwind from the disaster. Signs of trees, but no trees. Images of water, but nothing clear to drink. They burn at the sight of beauty, are reckless without cause, rational without understanding. Among the owls and bats, they hang from buildings and bridges, for nothing has been saved for the winter, and summer is but half constructed. The opossum dances with his mistress, as the priest with his god, the rabbit with its mechanic, is as the needle with its habit. For a suckling child shall lead them through the steep streets of Mexico City. Though the amusements are shuttered and the wind burns cold, the sands of Coney Island shall be flames of amazement. For when their forests are bare, the child will write them back into existence one branch at a time, until the wilderness fills with words and Gödel's theorem is exacted. Gödel is consistent. How shall we incomplete him? Gödel, tea kettle, what was the future today? How can we be one now that mastery's gone? What rights must be wrong? What songs have we unsung? And my last one is a short poem. It's to the choir master, and there's a quote. Art thou not from everlasting, O Lord my God, my Holy One? We shall not die. The rock lives in the desert, solid, taking its time. The wave lives for an instant, stable in momentum at the edge of the sea, before it folds away. Everything that is lives and has size. The mole sleeps in a hole of its making, and the hole also lives. Absence, it is not nothing. It didn't desire to be, but now it breathes and makes a place for the comfort of the mole. I am a space taken, and my absence will be shapely and of a certain age in the everlasting. In the fierce evening, on the mild day, how long shall I be shaken? So thank you. That's my reading. So the Bible poems were not published before because no one would publish them.
Which ones?
It's called Gravity's Children, and I wanted to write a poem for each of the 38 books. It was too much. It was too much. Sometimes you have to give up. So anyway, I published them in this book as new poems. But I actually started writing them in 2000, year 2000. So for what that's worth.
Well,
You started writing them before your father died, and you got his Bible, right?
What's that?
You started writing them the year your dad died.
Yeah, my dad died, and I had
got his
Yeah,
dad
to
fun.
collect his things from the funeral home.
Actually, you are getting into something that's going to be my first question for both of you. Before I do that, I want to say that the sign of a good poetry reading is when the poets who are reading make you want to rush off the rush out and do your own writing. And I know I'll be doing that after we're done. And I thank you both for all these wonderful ideas that found their way into a form. And again, some of these killer lines that both of you have, for which thank you. I do want to say also for everyone, there is going to be a recording of this reading, and it will be uploaded before the evening is over, and we'll get the link out to all of you, and you may want to provide it to people you know who weren't here and would like to be able to hear you. I myself will go back and listen to it so I can get some of those ideas that are going to inspire me for the evening. The question I want to ask you both is to start, and then we'll see how long we have to go. It's what is one thing that you think that we should know about your spouse's writing?
Oh, well,
Oh,
okay, I'll go first.
okay. I'll say I think the same thing about him.
So Maxine, we used to live in Chicago in Sheridan Road on the third floor, a lot of sun in the afternoon. And in the time it took me to drive our daughter Corwin to her school, which was about a 20-minute round trip, half an hour most, Maxine will have written a poem. She found that solitude in my, the house is empty, she's there, she writes a poem, and she's very quick-witted, and strikes quickly, and over and done. Yeah. And that's the way she.
The speed is what he is remarking on. I also like the privacy because, of course, when you have a little kid and you only have like 2 hours while she's at preschool, you want to get your work done. And
Right.
I would try very hard, not every day, but the days I wanted to write, I would try to get a first draft at least down very quickly so that I had it. Once you have that first draft down, then you can work on it forever. But getting it down for me meant trying to get it done before anybody came back. Not that Paul couldn't see me write, but there was something about me wanting to get it done. Right. He was away too. So that's true. That's true about me. And something I can say about Paul is that Paul is always working.
Always
when
one.
He's always working on something. Whether it's a collection of related poems, like we saw in some of the selection that he offered us, like the poems in Spanish or the poems based on the death of whose son? I forgot whose son it is who died in your book. In the world, who died? Mallarmé's son, the death of Mallarmé's son.
That poem has so much death in it because
right.
I was
Anatole is the name of the original poem. But Paul gets very absorbed in big projects, and he's always absorbed in some big project. So when he apologizes for not being able to write poems for every page of the Bible, he means it. I mean, because that's something he would try.
Some of the Bible, some of the books don't offer that much.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that he is to immersion what I am to speed.
That's pretty good balance.
Yeah.
You know, they say about marriages that it is the differences between the two that eventually drive both people crazy about the other, but are also what provides the spark.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. We're very different temperamentally.
Mhm.
I was raised by loud Jewish people, and he was raised by a quiet Protestant.
Quiet Protestants.
And
very
his wife.
much,
There's the first difference, and it's a big difference.
Mhm.
I tend to want to talk about everything, and Paul tends to.
Speaking of which, Paul, did you say you were a preacher's kid?
Yeah. It's the faith group is called Church of the Brethren. They were founded in early 1700s in Schwarzenau, Germany, or is it
Anabaptist,
Switzerland?
Right?
And they had to get out because Anabaptists were being punished in those days. They were baptizing their own, and we were one of those groups. We're also sometimes despised because we're pacifists.
That should be a reason to be despised.
Celebrated.
Certainly here in these United States. Tell me one thing that you have in the collaborations that the two of you have done. And tell me what collaboration that would be. What has it been like to work with each other?
The main collaboration has been the Holderlin that we did together. And then, of course, for many, many years, both of us edited the magazine. So editing the magazine, we had just a routine. And the routine was mainly that I would screen. I was the screener. And so after a while, we would have a big laundry basket full of stuff to look at. And that's when we would sit down together and we would start deciding together what remained that we wanted to publish. Okay, so that was the main way that we worked the magazine. Paul did all the design work and all the production work. And I did all the early. So I did kind of the upfront stuff and he did the later stuff, but we decided together and we almost always agreed on what poems to publish. I mean, we very rarely said, okay, you can have that, even though I hate that poem. Like that rarely happened. We mainly agreed on everything when we edited together. Is that your recollection too, Paul?
Yeah, and there were times when you said no to a poem, and I did too.
Yeah, and there were times when I said, fine, if you like it, publish it, and
yeah,
fine, it's okay with me. It's just not my favorite poem. It's fine. And then when we worked on the Holderlin, it was quite different. We started one summer kind of just playing with translating Holderlin. And we were translating him because we found the translation that so many people really love and find satisfactory, the Michael Hamburger translation. We didn't find satisfactory because we thought too often he was going for the rhyme and he was going to keep the line length similar and the rhyme in there. And he put in superfluous words and words that, I didn't see anywhere in German or near German. And we decided we wanted to do we started to do and see what would happen. We didn't have a big plan to do a book at that point. Just let's sit down and rewrite some of these together, translate together, and see how they turn out when we do them. And so we did that and we found it satisfactory and you could take it up from there.
We did. What we discovered is that Hamburger had avoided a lyric, and Holderlin is a powerful lyric poet. If you let the basic central meaning come forward, but Hamburger was trying to be obedient to an ancient Attic rhythm. It was from Greece, right?
Translated through German.
Yeah, and then so wanted to be like Greek and also like German, and now you have to go to English. And so it got an unnatural twist along the way. So we put,
So we kind of untwisted it and made it what we thought more back to its lyricism.
yeah,
And we worked very diligently. We would rush home from wherever we were and sit down in our dining room with 2 yellow pads and start going through a poem. And then Paul would take it into the study and type it up. And then we go back to the typed up version and redo that 150 times. There's so many rewrites of that manuscript, right? Like what, Paul? How many?
well, when it was published by Omnidawn, Ken told me that one of the publishers, Ken, told me that they had 47 PDFs of the text.
So many times that things were changed.
That's how many.
And we had native German speakers also read it for us because we realized we're not, given that our German is from college and my German is through Yiddish from growing up in a household with a grandma who spoke Yiddish, that we needed some true German speakers to see if we weren't making complete idiots of ourselves.
Yeah.
And in addition, it's not even German in a sense because Hölderlin was writing in Schwabian, which is no longer a language that's spoken. So it was a form of German that doesn't even exist anymore.
It was
so we had
the idiom of a country bumpkin, like the outlands.
The outlander. So we had 3 people helping us not as much proofreading, but giving us suggestions, and they were all very, very, very helpful. Of course, I can't remember his name, but he translates the other person whose name I can't remember right now either. W.S. Sebald's translator, Michael Hulse, who is a wonderful translator of German. He was very, very helpful to us. I mean, I barely know him, and he sent us about 5 pages single-spaced of notes about the book. And at one point we were saying, is there any poem where we got the whole poem right? There were a few.
His first sentence, we wanted a blurb. He says, "Yes, I'll write a blurb for you, but I see a few
things I'd like to comment on."
Yeah.
If you want it to be a good blurb.
Yeah, well, he was more helpful than a person could ever expect. Very grateful to him.
Translation is like a whole other thing, and you're starting to surface it just by talking about your experience. I can think of a couple of other poet couples that do translation together, and there must be something about the proximity and the emotional closeness that facilitates that process.
Rosemary and Keith Waldrop would be an example.
Yeah, they're huge translators, right? Yeah.
Well, I believe Heather McHugh, and I don't know her then husband's name, and also Ilya Kaminsky and Katie
Ferris. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, also. This has been a wonderful evening. I wish we had time to go further, but thank you so much for being with us and sharing your art. And also thanks to everybody in the open mic, as usual, just a wonderful group of people. And for those who have not been with us before, particularly, I think the only ones who were not with us before are Randy and Elizabeth. I'd love to hear you again. I just loved what you read, and another wonderful night, and we made it through the tornado. We're gonna go out and see what damage was done to the trees.
That's great. Thank you for having us, Nina, and thank you for hosting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and hope to see you next week, the second Monday